Your translator is lying. The cruise captain warned the billionaire Heiress just in time. Captain Ethan Walker had faced hurricanes, engine failures, and even a pirate threat during his 16 years at sea, but none of those moments terrified him as much as the sentence he was about to speak. Because in less than 10 seconds, the billionaire heiress sitting across the room was about to sign a contract worth billions of dollars. And if she signed it, she would unknowingly destroy her own company. Ethan stood frozen outside the private executive dining suite aboard the Ocean Majesty, listening carefully. The translator was lying, and the billionaire trusted every word he said. Inside the room, Victoria Sinclair, owner of Sinclair Global Cruises, lifted a silver pen and prepared to sign the agreement. Ethan knew he had only one choice. He pushed open the door, every eye turned toward him, and in a calm voice that instantly changed the atmosphere, he said, "Ms. Sinclair, your translator is lying to you." The room fell silent. The pen stopped moving. Victoria stared at him in disbelief. The translator's face immediately turned pale, and Ethan realized there was no turning back now. Only 30 minutes earlier, Ethan had been performing a routine inspection of the executive decks. The Ocean Majesty was Sinclair Cruises' most luxurious vessel, carrying wealthy guests, celebrities, politicians, and business leaders across the Mediterranean. This voyage was particularly important because Victoria Sinclair herself was on board. At only 38 years old, she had inherited the cruise empire after her father's death and transformed it into one of the fastest-growing cruise companies in the world. But success came with enemies. For months she had been negotiating a merger with Lorenzo Costa, a powerful European shipping billionaire. Tonight was supposed to be the final step. The agreement would create one of the largest cruise and shipping alliances in the world. Investors were celebrating. Board members were celebrating. The media was already preparing headlines. Everything appeared perfect. Until Ethan accidentally overheard the conversation. While checking communication systems outside the executive suites, he heard Lorenzo speaking Italian. Most people aboard the ship didn't know Ethan understood Italian fluently. Before becoming a cruise captain, he had spent years working around Mediterranean ports and shipping companies. The language had become second nature. At first he paid little attention, then something felt wrong. The translator, Simon Grant, was not translating Lorenzo's words correctly. Not even close. Ethan moved closer. Inside, Victoria asked a simple question. "I want assurances that no Sinclair employees will lose their jobs after this merger." Simon translated her statement into Italian, but what he actually told Lorenzo was completely different. "She is willing to reduce staff if it improves profitability." Ethan frowned. That wasn't what Victoria said, not even remotely. Lorenzo smiled, then responded in Italian. "Excellent. Once the deal closes, we'll remove most of the current management and replace them with our people." Simon turned toward Victoria. "Mr. Costa respects your commitment to employees and fully agrees." Victoria smiled. She believed him. Ethan felt a knot form in his stomach. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was deliberate deception, and it continued throughout the meeting. Every important point was altered. Every condition was manipulated. Every promise was twisted. The more Ethan listened, the worse it became. Thousands of jobs were at risk. Entire departments could disappear, and Victoria had absolutely no idea. When she finally picked up the pen to sign, Ethan made his decision. Now he stood inside the room, facing three of the most powerful people in the industry. Victoria slowly lowered the pen. "What did you just say, Captain?" Ethan maintained eye contact. "I said your translator is lying." Simon immediately stood. "This is ridiculous." Lorenzo looked confused. Victoria looked angry. "Captain Walker," she said coldly, "do you understand the seriousness of interrupting this meeting?" "I do. And yet you still interrupted." "Yes." The confidence in his voice surprised everyone. Victoria folded her arms. "Explain." Ethan looked toward Simon. "For the last 30 minutes he has intentionally mistranslated both sides." Simon's face darkened. "That's absurd." Ethan ignored him. "You asked for guarantees that your employees would keep their jobs." Victoria nodded. Yes. Ethan turned toward Lorenzo and spoke perfect Italian. The billionaire's eyes widened immediately. Ethan repeated Lorenzo's actual response word for word, then translated it accurately. Victoria's expression changed instantly, slowly, generously. She turned toward Simon. Simon suddenly looked nervous. Very nervous. Victoria asked another question. This time Ethan translated. Then Lorenzo answered. Ethan translated. Within minutes the truth became obvious. The translations Simon had been providing were completely different from the actual conversation. The room grew colder with every revelation. Finally Victoria looked directly at Simon. How long? Simon swallowed. No answer. How long have you been doing this? Still silence. Then Lorenzo exploded. In Italian. He had been deceived too. Simon hadn't only manipulated Victoria. He had manipulated both sides. The entire merger had been built on lies. Security arrived moments later. Simon was escorted from the room. His career ended before the ship even reached its next port. The billion-dollar signing ceremony was immediately suspended. For several minutes nobody spoke. Victoria simply stared at Ethan, trying to understand why a cruise captain had risked everything. Finally she asked, "Why didn't you stay silent?" Ethan thought about it, then answered honestly. Because it was wrong. Victoria studied him carefully. Most people around her wanted money, power, promotion, something. But Ethan seemed to want none of those things. He simply couldn't watch someone be cheated, especially not in front of him. For the first time that evening, Victoria smiled. A genuine smile. "Sit down, Captain." The meeting continued for another 2 hours. This time Ethan served as translator. The revised negotiations were difficult but honest. By midnight both sides reached a completely different agreement. A better agreement. One that protected employees, protected investors, and protected the future of Sinclair Cruises. When everything finally ended, Victoria walked Ethan toward the executive elevator. "You saved me tonight." Ethan shook his head. "You would have discovered it eventually." "No." Victoria smiled slightly. "I would have signed it." For a moment neither spoke, then she asked something unexpected. "Tell me about your family." Ethan hesitated. "My daughter and I live in Miami." "How old is she?" 9. Victoria's expression softened. "And her mother?" "Passed away 4 years ago." The smile disappeared. "I'm sorry." Ethan nodded. Life at sea had never been easy. Raising Lily alone had been even harder, but she was his entire world. Victoria noticed something in his eyes whenever he mentioned his daughter. Something genuine, something rare, love, the kind that couldn't be bought. Over the following weeks, news of the failed merger never reached the public. Officially, negotiations had simply been delayed. Unofficially, Victoria requested Ethan's assistance more frequently. At first it was for international meetings, then strategy discussions, then executive reviews. She trusted his judgment. Not because he was a businessman, but because he wasn't. His decisions weren't influenced by politics, or greed, or corporate games. One evening they stood together on the observation deck watching the sunset. The ocean stretched endlessly around them. Victoria leaned against the railing. "You know something strange?" "What?" "I have hundreds of executives." Ethan smiled. "I've noticed. And yet you're the only person who told me the truth when it could hurt you." The statement lingered between them, because both knew it was true. Most people protected themselves. Ethan had protected someone else. 3 months later the revised merger officially closed. This time there were no hidden clauses, no deception, no tricks. The agreement became one of the most successful deals in cruise industry history. Sinclair Cruises expanded globally. Stock prices soared. Investors celebrated. Employees kept their jobs. And Victoria never forgot who made it possible. One afternoon Ethan received a call from company headquarters. He expected another meeting. Instead he was informed he had been promoted to Senior Fleet Operations Director, while remaining captain of the Ocean Majesty. The salary increase was substantial. The benefits were even better. Most importantly, Lily's medical insurance would now cover every treatment she needed. When Ethan received the news, He sat quietly for several moments. Relief washed over him. Years of financial pressure suddenly felt lighter. That evening he called his daughter. "Daddy." Her cheerful voice instantly made him smile. "Hey, Bug, guess what happened at school?" Ethan laughed. "Tell me." 20 minutes later she was still talking, and Ethan listened to every word, because those conversations mattered more than promotions, more than money, more than anything. A few days later, Ethan received a message from Victoria. Just one sentence. Thank you for refusing to stay silent. Ethan looked out across the ocean from the bridge of the Ocean Majesty. The sea was calm, the horizon endless. Sometimes life changed because of courage, sometimes because of luck, and sometimes because a cruise captain overheard a lie and chose to tell the truth. A truth that saved a billionaire's empire, protected thousands of employees, and proved that integrity still mattered in a world where most people had forgotten its value.